When John was young, he left home after his parents opposed his musical aspirations. He had no one to rely on but me. I had also made up my mind when we got married. I was determined to support him for the rest of our lives. But after being away for a while, John suddenly came back, sat on the sofa, and abruptly said, "I'm going to divorce you and remarry my lover. I'm never going to see you or Karen again." What? After cutting ties with John and living a peaceful life with my daughter Karen, a year passed in the blink of an eye. Then one day, John suddenly returned. "Hey, Karen, your dad's back. You've grown so much." Karen looked at him, initially surprised, but her expression quickly turned into one of hatred. "Who are you?" I asked you. Who are you?" Karen's voice was strong and unfamiliar, even to me. John, bewildered, replied, "What do you mean?" "I'm your dad," Karen shot back. "I don't have a dad. My name is Mary, and I'm a 38-year-old working mother. I've been married to John for 13 years. Our daughter, Karen, who was the reason we got married, is now 13 years old herself. For the past 13 years, while supporting John's music career, I've also continued the job I had before we got married, all while raising Karen. These 13 years have passed by in a whirlwind, with hardly any time for myself. I met John at a jazz bar. I was young and had never really listened to jazz, feeling like it was something beyond my reach. But one day, my best friend Ann took me to a bar, and I was captivated, not by the jazz, but by John. John, playing his bass with such passion, was dazzling. From that day on, I would check the schedule and frequently visit the jazz bar whenever John was playing. Sometimes I'd go with Ann, sometimes alone. It was a small bar, and after going a few times, I started to recognize familiar faces. Eventually, I became friendly with John and the other band members, and it became routine for us to drink together after their performances. And then one day, John invited me to his room. I remember feeling so nervous and excited, my heart pounding at the thought of being alone with John in his room, the man I admired. It was probably that day that Karen was conceived. From that moment on, John and I grew rapidly closer, visiting each other's rooms frequently. At the time, I had already left my parents' home to live alone after starting university. A little while later, I noticed changes in my body and decided to visit an OB-GYN by myself. That's when I was told I was pregnant. Looking back now, I can't help but marvel at the power of being a woman. Even while being infatuated with John, I had already started planning how to raise the child. John was just about to launch his music career, so we couldn't rely on his income. I knew I would have to continue working. I'd also need my parents' support. In my head, I was laying out various plans. I had some vague anxieties, but at the same time, I was genuinely happy about the new life growing inside me. Surely, John would be happy too. I was certain that this news would motivate him for the future, so I didn't hesitate to tell him, "I think I'm pregnant." But in my room, where I had invited John for this important conversation, he simply lit a cigarette, his expression turning grim. "No way. For real." After that, he fell silent for a while. It wasn't the reaction I had expected, but I thought it was natural for him to be shocked. "You're surprised, right?" I was too. Unable to stand the silence, I spoke up, but John remained quiet for a little longer. Then, as if spitting the words out, he said, "I can't do this." "What?" "I want to focus on my music. I've got no money. I can't handle having a kid." I knew how important music was to John. That was the John I had fallen in love with. I also understood we didn't have money. "I'll work too, so I'm sure we can manage. Things might change for you, but you can still keep playing music." "What do you mean, things might change? I don't want that. And how do I even know if the kid is mine?" At those words, nausea suddenly hit me, and I rushed to the bathroom. I wasn't sure if it was morning sickness or John's response that made me sick, but I cried while emptying the contents of my stomach. When I returned to the room, John had lit his second cigarette, blowing smoke out with an irritated look on his face. "It's not good for the baby. Could you please stop smoking?" Perhaps my words made him even angrier, as he aggressively put out the cigarette and stood up. "Eck, this is such a hassle. I'm leaving." "Wait, we haven't finished talking." John cut me off by loudly opening the door. I just stood there, staring blankly at John's back as he hurried out. A few days later, Anne invited me to lunch. I wasn't in the mood, but I thought I should tell her about the pregnancy, so I agreed to meet. It was a pleasantly sunny day. We got a table on the patio. Anne ordered a lunch plate, while I, not feeling very hungry, just ordered a salad. "No appetite. That's unusual. You always eat more than I do." "Do I? I think you usually beat me," I replied with a smile, though I could tell that my smile didn't quite reach my eyes. "I'm pregnant." Anne looked surprised for a brief moment, then reached across the table and held my hands in hers. "Congratulations." "Thanks." I was overwhelmed with emotion, and tears began to well up. I was so happy that Anne was genuinely celebrating the new life inside me. "Why are you crying? You're going to be a mom. You've got to be strong," Anne said, smiling gently, but I couldn't hold back the tears, and they kept flowing. Anne moved to sit next to me, rubbing my back until I finally calmed down. "What's going on? These don't seem like happy tears," she asked, waiting patiently for me to pull myself together. Anne was always perceptive. She had always been on my side. As I told her about John's reaction to the pregnancy, and the fact that I hadn't heard anything from him since, Anne's expression turned to one of anger. When I finished, she looked at me seriously and asked, "Do you still love John?" Even after all this, I probably did. That's why I wanted him to share in the joy of the pregnancy and think about our future together. Yes, I think I still love him. Maybe John's just confused. Once the baby's born, maybe he'll become a dad. I want to believe that. "I see. Leave it to me," Anne replied confidently, gripping my hand again. "Don't worry about a thing. The only one who can protect that baby is you, Mary." Anne's words didn't completely erase my anxiety, but they gave me strength. That night, I slept better than I had in a long time. A few days later, John called me. "I heard from Anne. It seems there's no doubt it's my kid. I'll take responsibility." I didn't know what exactly Anne had said to him, but knowing how smart and strong-willed she was, I could imagine she had cornered him with a demand for integrity. John seemed completely remorseful. "What do you mean by taking responsibility?" I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear it from John himself. "Let's get married." Even though this wasn't the most romantic proposal, I was genuinely happy. I was overflowing with joy, and everything around me seemed to shine. Little did I know, this would be the peak of my happiness. Since we didn't have any money, we only registered our marriage and didn't have a ceremony. However, John's bandmates and my friends threw us a celebratory party. I can still vividly remember feeling uneasy during that time, seeing John remain cold and distant despite everyone around us celebrating. I felt terribly guilty toward everyone who had gone out of their way to host the party. Our married life, which started off like this, was already frigid from the beginning. Since John's income wasn't reliable, I worked until just before giving birth, and returned to work soon after. John, always busy with his music career, rarely came home. Even after Karen was born, this didn't change. "Sometimes you should make time to spend with Karen," I would tell him. He claimed that his out-of-town gigs were increasing, but none of the money he made from those gigs ever came into our household. Although I was frustrated, I had expected this. So I managed to bear it by telling myself that I just needed to work harder. But when John did come home, all he did was sleep, never interacting with Karen. That I couldn't tolerate. I felt sorry for Karen. At this rate, she's going to grow up not even knowing who her dad is. So what? Isn't that fine? You accepted that I'd keep doing music, right? What kind of musician is attractive if they're all domesticated? Getting married has already been a blow to my image. It's actually more convenient if she grows up not knowing me. There are plenty of musicians out there who are successful while still caring for their families. Maybe the reason John wasn't famous had more to do with his own lack of talent. I wanted to argue back, but knew it would be pointless. From that day forward, I stopped expecting anything from John. The only reason I was able to raise Karen while working was thanks to the help of my parents. Now Karen is a middle schooler. Karen, it looks like Dad's coming home today. Huh? Why? What do you mean, why? He doesn't need a reason to come home. I smiled as I said it, but I knew the real reason. John only came home for one reason: when he ran out of money. He'd stay for a while, then ask for money before leaving again. John had no one else to rely on. After being rejected by his parents for pursuing music, he had left home, and I was all he had. I knew this when I married him, and I was prepared for it. I had intended to support him for life. However, when John came home after a long time, he sat on the sofa and abruptly said, "I'm getting remarried to my mistress, so I'm divorcing you. I'll never see you or Karen again." What? I had grown accustomed to being shocked by John's actions, but this time, I couldn't believe my ears. John, irritated by my silence, pulled out a cigarette and lit it. "Don't make me repeat myself. I'm marrying my mistress, and I'm never seeing you or Karen again." As I handed him the ashtray, I tried to process what he had just said. A mistress? Since when had he been seeing someone else? I had no idea. Was he not coming home because he was meeting her under the pretense of traveling for gigs? "You probably thought I came to ask for money, didn't you? Don't worry about it. My mistress is rich, so I don't need to rely on you anymore. Here, just file this." John placed the divorce papers on the table, waved his hand, and left. His signature was already on the documents. The moment I saw it, a small wave of sadness hit me. Before I realized it, I was calling Anne. She must have noticed something was wrong, because she agreed to meet me that same day. That evening, after work, I went to the pub where we agreed to meet. Anne had arrived before me. "Sorry to keep you waiting. I just got here myself. Let's order something. Are you drinking?" I could drink, but I didn't feel like it, so I shook my head. Anne ordered a few dishes and some soft drinks for us. When the drinks arrived, I began telling Anne about John. "Mary, I'm so sorry. I knew John was cheating." To my surprise, after hearing my story, Anne apologized to me. "You knew. I saw them walking together once. They looked really close, so I followed them, and they went into a hotel together. I even took a picture on my smartphone, so if you need it, just ask." Anne searched for the photo on her smartphone and showed it to me. A man and a woman, arm in arm, gazing into each other's eyes. The man was undoubtedly John. I didn't recognize the woman, but she seemed vaguely familiar. Anne must have felt the same way because as soon as she saw her, it clicked. The woman. I thought she looked familiar, and then I remembered. It's Betty, the culinary expert. She's really popular right now, teaching cooking classes and all that. You know who I'm talking about, right, Mary? Betty. I suddenly remembered seeing her in a magazine at the salon recently. She had an air of confidence and a glamorous presence. I'm sorry for keeping quiet, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. This woman, she dated an up-and-coming actor before, but they broke up in about a year. John will probably end up the same way. I had no intention of blaming Anne. If I had been in her shoes, I likely would have stayed silent too. I just needed time to face the reality. I never imagined that after 13 years of supporting John, he would betray me in such a way. It would be a lie to say I wasn't hurt, but I have Karen. I can't keep running away from reality. Karen's presence gave me strength. I'm thinking of divorcing Dad. What do you think, Karen? I told her as cheerfully as I could when she came home from her club activities. I carefully watched her face, trying not to miss even the smallest change in her expression. But Karen smiled, beaming with 100% happiness. I totally agree. That's great, Mom. You'll finally be free. Her brightness surpassed mine, and her casual answer surprised me. If Karen approved, There was no need to hesitate. All that was left was to take action and move forward with the divorce. The next day, I went to my parents' house and explained everything. They didn't oppose the idea of the divorce. I pulled out the divorce papers that John had left behind from my bag and signed them on the spot. That same day, I submitted them to the family court. There was no turning back now. Karen and I would move forward together, facing what lay ahead. Today marked the beginning of a new start toward happiness. I bought 2 small cakes to take home. That evening, Karen and I clinked our juice glasses in celebration. This is a celebration, isn't it? Karen's innocent smile made me so happy. John hadn't been around much to begin with. Life after the divorce wasn't much different from before. In fact, without John taking money from us, our financial situation was more manageable. Though my marriage ended due to John's adultery, I didn't ask for compensation or child support. I knew he didn't have the means. Even if I did ask, I doubted I'd ever receive anything. I figured it was easier to consider it a loss from the start rather than deal with potential trouble later. As I completely cut ties with John and settled into a peaceful life with Karen, a year passed by in the blink of an eye. Karen was now in 7th grade. She helped around the house a lot in my place, which was a great relief for me. I had promised her we would have her favorite Hamburg steak for dinner tonight. After finishing work, I quickly did the grocery shopping and rushed home. If I started cooking now, dinner would be ready just in time for Karen's return. Carrying the heavy bags, I reached the top of the apartment stairs. It's been a while. John's sudden appearance made me almost drop my bags. John, what are you doing here? I broke up with my lover. John replied casually, without the slightest hint of remorse. She said she didn't need someone who never makes it big. No matter how much I told her I'd make it soon, she didn't believe me. But Mary, you've always waited for me, right? So I broke up and came back. I couldn't find the words to respond. What is this man talking about? My mind was slow to catch up with the situation. And as I stared blankly at him, John gave a nasty grin. Why so quiet? Are you speechless from joy? If I kept silent, he'd go on making up the story as he pleased. I couldn't let that happen, so I forced myself to speak. Do you seriously think you can just come back? We're divorced. You're the one who initiated it, John. We're no longer a family. This isn't your home anymore. Don't be so cold. You stayed in this apartment because you were waiting for me, right? Come on, be honest. Anyway, give me something to eat. I'm starving. This was a man who had an affair, asked for a divorce, and left, saying he'd never see us again. Now, after a year, he was back, as if nothing had happened, asking for food. His utter lack of consideration made me wonder if he was even the same species as me. I'm sorry, John, but I can't let you into the house. Please leave. It used to be my home. Don't say that. At this rate, he'd disturb the neighbors. More importantly, I didn't want him anywhere near Karen. Maybe if I let him in and gave him something to eat, he'd leave before Karen came home. I was on the verge of giving in to John's persistence when, Mom, are you okay? Karen had returned home earlier than usual. Seeing me in a tense conversation with someone at the entrance, she looked worried. Karen, your dad is back. You've grown a lot in just a year. For a moment, Karen looked at John with surprise, but that expression quickly shifted into one of hatred. Who are you? What? I said, who are you? Even I, as her mother, had never seen Karen act this way. John seemed taken aback by Karen's sharp tone. Who? I'm your dad, of course. Huh, I don't have a dad. Karen was glaring at John without blinking. As far as I remember, I never had one. Right, Mom. Karen was absolutely right. Even before we got married, John had never truly been a father. From the moment Karen was born, he had never played the role of a father. And Karen, more than anyone, must have felt that absence deeply. Yes, you're right. As I replied, my heart ached. Though she had never said anything, Karen had been hurt all along by the fact that her father John had never truly been a father to her. Strangers aren't welcome here. Could you leave, Karen? How can you say that to your dad? Are you stupid? I just told you I don't have a dad. Get out. Disappear from our lives for good. Karen remained calm, but her demeanor clearly showed that she was resolute in rejecting John entirely. John, clearly shaken, had likely lost the will to argue. He had always been weak in front of strong women, and it seemed this applied even to his own daughter. Don't think you'll get away with this. Just as I expected, like a scene from a cheap drama. John stomped out his cigarette and stormed off, making a loud noise as he left. The moment John was gone, and we were back inside, Karen burst into tears, sobbing loudly. I could only imagine the weight of all the emotions she had been carrying inside her. As I stroked Karen's head while she continued to cry, I felt the emotions I had suppressed for so long begin to escape. John, who had thoughtlessly intruded on our peaceful lives, would never be forgiven this time. Watching Karen's small shoulders tremble as she wept, I swore to take revenge. The very next day, I began to act. John had repeatedly thrown around the word mistress, and though I felt I no longer needed any proof, I still received those clandestine photos from Anne and consulted a lawyer. A few days later, on my way home from work, I received a call from John. I anticipated the conversation would be serious, so I veered off onto a quieter path to answer. Hello, what the hell is this? Before I could say anything, John lashed out. And what would that be? I had expected this call, and that it would involve accusations, so I didn't shrink at John's shouting. I got a call from some lawyer claiming to represent you. Compensation? Seriously? I'm not joking. Claiming compensation a year after the divorce. It's absurd. How the hell am I supposed to pay $50K? I don't have that kind of money. John's voice was shaking with anger. I could easily imagine him on the other side, face red and eyes bulging in rage. The old me would have been scared by this alone, but not anymore. I was calm. Maybe you should remember this for your next marriage. Just because you're divorced doesn't mean you can't be held accountable. I supported you financially throughout our entire marriage. $50,000, including alimony and child support, is a bargain, and you should be grateful. I worked too. Yes, but you spent your entire paycheck on yourself, didn't you? Or have you forgotten? You don't have any proof of that. I'll tell your lawyer it's all lies. Tiring of the argument, I pulled out my smartphone and opened my banking app, reading through the details. Rent, utilities, groceries, Karen's school fees, your phone bill, all deducted from my account. And the records clearly show that. If you need proof, I can show you. Oh, and by the way, I also have photos of you with your mistress. John fell silent, but after a while, he responded in a weak voice. I don't have that kind of money. How am I supposed to come up with it? That's not my problem. John had lost the aggression he started with. For 13 years, I had never stood up to him like this, and now, faced with my newfound strength and the undeniable evidence, he must have been filled with regret for underestimating me. Why don't you sell your instruments and equipment? You could start with that precious double bass. Give up on music, and you probably wouldn't even need a car anymore, right? For the first time, John showed genuine distress. He had abandoned his daughter without hesitation or regret, choosing to walk away from us. But now, when asked to part with his instruments, he was shaken. Please don't take music away from me, Mary. I've lost you and Karen, and my mistress has left me. Music is all I have left. Was there no pride left in him at all? He was begging for sympathy, but after all this chaos, I couldn't muster any pity for him. That's your responsibility. Why don't you just give up? If I could give it up, I would have done it already. Please, Mary, you loved me for the music, didn't you? I couldn't help but laugh. After everything you've done, you think I still love you. That's incredibly optimistic of you. Let me be clear, John, I will never forgive you. I'll chase you down until you pay every last penny. So prepare yourself." John tried to say something more, but I ended the call. If he had stayed away after walking out a year ago, none of this would have happened. He left us, saying he'd never come back, only to try to return once his mistress discarded him. In all of this, he never considered how Karen or I felt. John treated our hearts like toys, and now he'd face the consequences. That night, when Karen returned home from her after-school club, I told her what had happened. I filed for compensation. For a long time, I just put up with things, but now I'm ready to fight back. Karen, this might mean some difficult times ahead, and I'm sorry for that. Karen wasn't a little girl anymore. I wanted to be honest with her about what was coming. Mom, you always apologize. I'm your biggest supporter, so from now on, please don't apologize to me about him. Karen's words had always given me strength, helping me find the courage to keep going. And now once again, she was standing by my side, supporting me. With Karen, I knew I had nothing to fear. Mom, you two had done a great job today. Yay, I really did my best. I'll have to keep it up from now on. Her use of mom, you two felt a bit off, but I smiled and began preparing dinner. She must have been starving. So, how was practice today? Karen's volleyball team was highly competitive, and the practices were tough. I took the day off for something important. It was surprising to hear Karen, who rarely missed practice even when she wasn't feeling well, had skipped for an errand. What could be more important than her beloved volleyball? I was curious, but knowing how teenagers feel about parental nosiness, I let it slide. The next day, I was shocked by what I saw in the news. The headline read, "Famous cooking expert Betty breaks up with musician she stole from his wife and child in less than a year." The article detailed a cooking class hosted by Betty, which doubled as a media event. According to the report, a young girl had shown up during the class. The accompanying photo left me speechless. Among the attendees and reporters, facing Betty, stood a pixelated figure, but even blurred, I recognized her immediately. It was Karen. The article detailed the exchange between the girl and Betty. "Don't send Dad back to us just because you don't want him anymore. Mom and I were finally living happily, but now that you've thrown him away, he's trying to come home. Who are you? What are you talking about? I'm the biological daughter of that washed-up musician you discarded." Surrounded by adults and the murmurs of the crowd, Karen didn't flinch as she spoke to Betty. "When I was little, Dad was never home. I'm sure it was because he was meeting you under the pretense of working on his music. Stop saying ridiculous things. But I never felt lonely because I had my loving mom, grandpa, and grandma. Even when Dad and Mom divorced, and he told us he'd never see us again because he was marrying his mistress, I didn't miss him one bit. Let's move this conversation somewhere private. This isn't something we should discuss in front of everyone." Worried about her image, Betty suggested moving to another room, but Karen didn't budge. "I'm not here to blame you for taking Dad. But you took him from Mom, only to throw him away when he stopped being useful to you. Someone like that, can they really make food that brings people joy?" That's what I wanted to ask everyone here today. This has nothing to do with cooking. My mom is very kind, and she makes kind and delicious food. But when she's sad, her food tastes sad too. As I read the article, tears welled up in my eyes. The thought of Karen sensing my emotions during our meals, sharing in my joys and sorrows, made me overwhelmingly sad. That's why I believe you can't make food that makes people happy. Karen's voice reportedly trembled as she confronted Betty. "Stop saying such nonsense and get out. Your dad is the only thing ruining my success." It wasn't Karen who left, though. The students of the cooking class, witnessing Betty's hysterical outburst at a young girl, were the ones who walked out. "Wait, why are you leaving? The interviews aren't over." Betty tried to stop them, but the students, mostly women preparing for marriage or newlyweds, looked at her with disdain and left without a word. Who would want to pay high tuition fees to learn from someone who didn't value family? It was only natural. After reading the online article, I turned on the TV. The incident at the cooking class was also being reported on the news. As I watched, Karen sat at the table, eating her breakfast toast with an expression as though nothing had happened. For a moment, I wondered if the girl in the news could have been someone else who merely resembled Karen. But it wasn't. Karen, that's you, right? Yep. You've got sharp eyes, Mom. Even with my face pixelated, you can still recognize your daughter. Karen answered with a laugh, but I pressed her seriously. Answer me properly, Karen. Did you really go to the cooking class? Yeah, I went. Karen admitted it without hesitation. I saw an ad saying there would be a cooking class with media coverage, and that they were recruiting students. I thought, this is my chance. So I skipped practice and went. I was overjoyed by Karen's bravery, even though she was only 14 years old. She had seen the advertisement for the cooking class and decided to take revenge on Dad's mistress. You punished Dad, and I punished her. It's all over now. Karen smiled, still with the innocence of a young girl. After the incident at the cooking class, the washed-up musician was identified, and John's band began to lose performance opportunities. Taking responsibility, John decided to leave the band. With no way to continue making music, John sold his beloved upright bass and car to pay off part of his debt to me. However, it was nowhere near the $50K he owed. He promised to pay the rest in installments, and now he works 2 jobs on a construction site during the day and as a security guard at night just to make his monthly payments. As for Better, after the news coverage, nearly all of her students quit her class. She had once been a frequent guest on TV shows, but now she's nowhere to be seen. Her popularity vanished almost overnight. Following Anne's advice, I also filed a compensation claim against Betty. Given her previous wealth, the amount I asked for was probably insignificant to her. The payment was made without delay. Yet, the scandal will undoubtedly follow Betty for the rest of her life. In a way, Betty might also be one of John's victims. Another year has passed since then. Karen and I moved out of the apartment we had once shared with John, and now we live with my parents. There are 4 of us in the house, me, my father, my mother, and Karen. Karen is preparing for her entrance exams this year. Karen, do you have a dream for the future? I do. I want to become a lawyer. I want to help people like you, Mom. That's a wonderful dream. I'll support you every step of the way, my father said with a gentle smile. He adores Karen and can't help but shower her with affection. I'm sure by night there will be a stack of law books waiting for her, all prepared by my father. Karen, you'll definitely make it. You're smart, just like me. You mean, just like me, my father corrected, grinning. I don't care who she takes after, but we're going to be late. Karen, hurry up. Okay, I'm off. Karen cheerfully dashed off to school, and the 3 of us watched her go. It was just an ordinary, happy morning.
I'm Emily, and 5 years ago, I got engaged to my college boyfriend, Kevin. We had already introduced each other to our families and even booked the venue for our wedding. I was genuinely looking forward to the wedding and our life together. Then one day, I was suddenly called to a cafe near Kevin's parents' house. He wouldn't say why over the phone, and we had never arranged to meet near his parents' place before, so I was worried something might have happened to them and rushed over. When I arrived at the cafe, I found a woman about my age sitting next to Kevin, someone I didn't recognize. From their demeanor, I had a bad feeling. Sorry for the wait. What's going on today? And who is this? I asked, and meet Jessica, an old friend of mine. I've decided to marry Jessica, so I thought I should let you know. Kevin told me. What, Mary? You're supposed to be marrying me, right? What? I panicked at Kevin's shocking announcement. So, I've decided to call off our wedding and marry Jessica instead, said Kevin. Wait, decided to marry? Since when were marriages decided unilaterally like this? What about our wedding? All these thoughts came to me, but I was too confused to say anything. I've always loved Jessica, actually. But she had a long-term boyfriend, so I settled for marrying you. You had a good job, so there were no worries about life, and you would do the chores and all. I thought you might be a good enough choice for marriage. But then I met Jessica again after a long time, and when I told her about marrying you, she said she'd break up with her boyfriend to marry me. She's willing to break up with her boyfriend for me. Isn't that pure love? He rambled on excitedly. All this time, Jessica looked at me with a smug expression. Seeing her expression made me feel miserable. But I hadn't done anything wrong. And to think he had felt this way about me all this time, I was just too shocked to comprehend. But here I was, his fiancée, even with the venue booked. I couldn't just walk away without discussing this unbelievable situation. But we've already booked the venue and paid for it. Can't we talk about this over again? I had more to say, but I was too shocked to articulate it well. Huh. Did you not listen to anything I just said? Jessica and I are in true love. You're asking to reconsider because of the venue money? Do you value money over my happiness? Huh, I guess it's good we're reconsidering the marriage. You never loved me. You loved my money. If you truly cared about my happiness, you'd step aside. I'm going to pursue my true love with Jessica. I don't want to see your face ever again. Don't show up in front of me anymore, he said. The money for the ceremony mostly came from my savings. A strangely calm counterargument came to my mind, but I was speechless. What Kevin was saying was just too incomprehensible, and I couldn't do anything at that moment. Next thing I knew, I was crying from the sadness and humiliation. The day after Kevin told me all this, I called his parents. They had been really happy about our wedding, and I wanted to know what they thought. When I told them what happened yesterday over the phone, Kevin's parents were shocked. Apparently, Kevin hadn't told them anything. Kevin did what on his own? Emily, I'm truly sorry. We're also unclear about the situation, so we'll check with Kevin and get back to you. Could you give us a little time? Said Kevin's parents. Realizing Kevin's parents weren't like him gave me a bit of solace. Despite what was said, accepting the broken engagement wasn't easy. Kevin was so kind when we were dating, and I loved him for that. Maybe he was misled by Jessica, and what he said wasn't really what he felt. However, that hope was shattered by a call from Kevin's parents. A few days later, I received a call from Kevin's parents. I was ambivalent about wanting to hear the answer, but I picked up the phone. Emily, we spoke with Kevin and heard everything he told you. I don't know how to apologize enough. I'm so sorry. Kevin's parents were crying over the phone. It seemed Kevin had shared his harsh words with his parents as well. That was Kevin's true feelings. We're really sorry, but we can't let you marry Kevin in such a state. We'll pay for the venue and compensation, so could you agree to cancel the engagement? They said. I wanted to talk to Kevin one more time, but seeing how his parents were, it seemed impossible. Kevin's parents sincerely apologized. I didn't take the compensation money. I doubted Kevin, who was only temporarily employed, could afford it, and it would end up being his parents who paid. I later found out that when Kevin's parents called me, Kevin and Jessica had already submitted their marriage registration. Kevin's parents kept silent to not hurt me further. Afterwards, I tried to move on but couldn't easily forget and struggled. A few weeks after the engagement was called off, when the wedding dress I had dreamt of ordering arrived at my home, I cried all night. Clearly, Kevin was 100% at fault, but I couldn't stay sane, wondering what I did wrong, how I could have made him choose me, sinking into depression. My private life was a mess, but I somehow kept up with work. Then one day, I was called into my boss's office. Worried that my personal issues had affected my work, I was anxious, but the discussion took an unexpected turn. "We're starting a new project overseas, Emily. Would you be interested in working abroad for about 5 years? I've always noticed your work and wanted you to join this new overseas project. I knew about your wedding plans, so I thought the timing might not work. But living abroad might be challenging. It's an opportunity for career advancement. How about giving it a try?" It was an unexpected offer for an overseas assignment. I immediately said yes. I didn't want to stay in America where Kevin was, and I was done with marriage. I planned to work hard on my career, earn plenty, and live independently in my old age. Not just for 5 years, but I was ready to stay abroad for longer. As I prepared to start anew overseas, it turned out the place had a significant American presence, and there was quite a bit of interaction among Americans. I didn't want to deal with any questions from Americans, but soon after moving, I was invited to a monthly gathering with a large American presence. I thought I'd attend just once out of courtesy, but I found the gathering surprisingly comfortable. Many older Americans who had come here for work and ended up staying. They provided a comforting space with a good distance, which was healing for my tired heart. 2 years have passed since I moved overseas, and the casual relationships among Americans continued, with me becoming quite close to everyone. Then one day, an elderly American gentleman, Brian, who had been very kind to me, said he wanted to introduce me to a male relative. I appreciated the gesture, but I had to decline, explaining that after my broken engagement, I wasn't considering marriage anymore. However, Brian said, "Don't overthink it. Just see him as a friend of the same age and meet him. How about that?" I couldn't say no to that, especially since he seemed concerned about me. On the day of the meeting, waiting at the cafe, a handsome man sat down in front of me. "Emily, nice to meet you. I'm Pierre," he said in fluent English. I was surprised to meet someone from France, expecting an American because he was related to Brian. And he was incredibly handsome. I regretted coming in my usual attire of a shirt and jeans. Pierre explained he was the stepson of a relative of Brian's wife and had never lived in America but spoke English because he was surrounded by American relatives. Pierre was easy to talk to, but I was so embarrassed by his good looks that I couldn't make eye contact and felt uneasy throughout our first meeting. I thought Pierre must have found it boring and didn't expect to meet again, but to my surprise, he kept inviting me out, and we gradually became closer. 3 years flew by, and when I received my orders to return home, Pierre said he would come with me, and we decided to get married. I was amazed at how much he had become a part of my life, considering my past wounds from Kevin. After returning to America, I was invited to the wedding of my college friend, Nicole. She had been a close friend, and we kept in touch while I was abroad, so she knew about Pierre. Nicole insisted that Pierre come too, so we agreed he would join from the reception. At the reception, I sat on a couch waiting for Pierre. Someone suddenly sat next to me. Too close for comfort, I turned to see who it was, and to my disbelief, it was Kevin. I thought it will be all right, but seeing his face brought back the past, and I froze. Without considering my feelings. "Emily, I've missed you while you were abroad. Why didn't you contact me? I truly shined when I was with you, feeling like my true self. Now, without you, I'm not really me, you know?" Kevin said. He talked non-stop, ignoring my perspective just like when he broke up with me. Remembering those days made me feel sick. Barely managing to reply. "Jessica is there, isn't she?" Kevin got angry and said, "I don't care about her." Confused and troubled by his behavior, the reception began. And I took the chance to slip away from Kevin. I was worried about Pierre not showing up, but I decided to enjoy catching up with old friends. Though Kevin dampened the mood, I was enjoying the reception when the bingo game started. Everyone got excited as it was quite challenging until the first bingo came. It was Kevin. Despite feeling uneasy, I couldn't spoil the celebratory mood. When called by the host, Kevin went up to the stage. Asked to give a congratulatory speech to the bride and groom, he began with something astonishing. "Congratulations to the bride and groom. Inspired by you two, today I also have someone I want to express my feelings to," Kevin said. My heart nearly burst, thinking, no way. "Emily, I still love you. Marry me," Kevin shouted from the stage. At that moment, everything went dark before my eyes. What is he talking about? Has he forgotten what he said to me in the past? And at someone else's wedding, how outrageous. I was about to explode with anger, but then I saw Nicole winking at me. As I stood there confused, the sound of the door opening filled the venue. Everyone's attention turned to the entrance, where Pierre appeared, holding a bouquet of red roses. He came over to me and hugged and kissed me suddenly. The venue erupted in cheers. While I was still bewildered, he said "I love you" in French and handed me the bouquet. I usually heard him speak English, so why French? But being professed love in front of everyone, I was both thrilled and embarrassed, blushing deeply. Then the bride said, "This time, one of my college friends is also getting married. It's Emily and Pierre. Emily is a dear friend of mine. Let's all celebrate with them today," she announced. "Having such a handsome boyfriend with a bouquet of roses is amazing. Emily, you had such a wonderful boyfriend. Congratulations." Everyone congratulated us. I glanced at Kevin, who had been completely forgotten and stood there looking foolishly stunned. Well, Emily is married now. Kevin's feelings didn't reach her, thank you for that. Now, let's continue with the bingo game, said the host as Kevin stepped down from the stage. Though it was a shame for Kevin to be embarrassed in front of everyone, I honestly felt good about it. When I asked Pierre why he did it, it turned out Nicole had planned everything. Kevin begged me to let him propose to Emily at the reception. I was so angry I thought about refusing, but then I saw it as a chance for revenge. I haven't forgiven Kevin for what he did to Emily, she explained. The bouquet of roses, the kiss, the confession in French, everything was planned by my best friend. I apologized for ruining the reception with our drama. What are you talking about? It was the best entertainment, Nicole said. I heard from friends that Kevin was left by Jessica soon after they got married. Kevin worked at a major corporation on a temporary basis, but Jessica married him thinking he was a permanent employee of a big company, hence wealthy. Once married, she realized the reality of his temporary employment, low salary and no benefits. Plus, rushing into marriage after breaking off his engagement with me led to him being fired due to losing credibility at work. I was tricked, she declared, and they quickly divorced. So he clung to me. Being a full-time employee with a decent salary, I often paid more during our relationship and even covered most of our wedding expenses. Kevin must have missed my money. How trivial. One day, a package arrived at my new home from my parents' house. It contained local sweets and vegetables, but among them was a stack of postcards. At one look, Emily, I love you. I can forgive your mistakes. The stars are beautiful tonight. Are you looking at the same starry sky? Without you, I'm like a vacuum cleaner without a filter. It revealed creepy poems from Kevin like, The postmarks showed these postcards had been sent daily after the wedding. Too creepy. Sending such things to my parents' house was a nuisance. I bundled the postcards and sent them to Kevin's parents, who immediately contacted me. "We are truly sorry for still causing you trouble. We'll make sure he never bothers you again," they promised. When I, Melissa, met my husband Daniel, was 30 and working for a foreign-affiliated company. I had been recognized for my achievements and now holding a managerial position. Daniel was also 30, working as a grocery store clerk at the time. When we met, Daniel had a history of divorce and a 1.5-year-old daughter, Kayla. Kayla often fell ill, resulting in frequent calls from the childcare center. As a result, he was forced to resign from his job, a decision made for his child's sake, and subsequently survived on part-time jobs. His ex-wife was alive and well but did not claim custody. She was the type to spend all her money. She said she couldn't be free with a child. I don't know the truth of these stories. Anyway, what started as a regular interaction between a grocery store clerk and a customer somehow led to a deep connection. Including Kayla, we started going out together, and eventually, marriage came up in conversation. I might not earn much, and I've been divorced, but Kayla has grown to be fond of Melissa too. It would be a lie to say that it didn't make me feel good. Indeed, Kayla had grown quite attached to me. I had been afraid marriage would disrupt my career, but I thought having a child already in the picture might not be an issue. Seeing Kayla smiling broadly on my lap made me feel genuinely attached to her. So, by the time Kayla turned 2, we decided to become a family of 3. Though, from the beginning, we might not have been a typical family. Daniel chose not to work full-time for Kayla's sake, and I continued to prioritize my career. Luckily, I earned enough to support us, even with Daniel's part-time income. I appreciated him taking care of the household, and we settled into roles that worked for us. However, I thought that might be the case. We believed it was fine to be a family like this. Kayla might have felt more secure with her biological father during illness, and having no prior parenting experience, taking care of a 2-year-old would have been challenging for me. It might have been unconventional, but it felt right. Things began to change when I was offered an assignment abroad. This assignment was not only my dream but would also significantly benefit my career. Despite the competition, I was given the opportunity, thanks to several recommendations. I was torn, of course. On one hand, I wanted to go. But Kayla was about to enter middle school, a time when she might need a mother figure. Though not her biological mother, we had lived together for 10 years. I wanted her to be happy. Daniel said to me, "Go ahead. We'll be fine here. But I know you're worried about Kayla. But she's 12 now, not a little girl anymore. She's gotten much stronger recently. You wanted to go, right? Go with peace of mind. We'll be waiting for you in America." With those words from Daniel, my solo assignment abroad was decided. Thankfully, my company was not heartless. They made it easier for me to return to America, allowing me to keep in touch with Kayla and Daniel as much as possible. But soon, Kayla's behavior began to change. She became quite prickly. Maybe she felt abandoned. But she had her real father, right? Was she that attached to me? Looking back, I can't pinpoint when. Perhaps I didn't fully understand what being in a stepfamily meant. I thought we were doing fairly well, but maybe that was my misunderstanding. Confiding my concerns to Daniel only led to responses like, "That's just adolescence. She's embarrassed." Or, "She has her own world now. Please respect that." Eventually, The fact that you're abroad and can't be relied upon, and that you're not her real mother, is the truth," he bluntly stated. Faced with that, I had nothing to say. Kayla, who was only 2 when we married, seemed to have learned the truth about our family when I went abroad. Even though we were supposed to be a family, being informed without any prior consultation was a shock. Yet, I hoped that someday, after puberty passed, she might smile at me like before. "Sorry about those times," she might say with a smile. I endured, thinking so. But Kayla's attitude never waned. Every time she saw me, it was a barrage of insults. Every look she gave me was filled with words like ugly, old hag, and disgusting, the worst possible words she could think of. And Daniel, seeing this, would just laugh and not bother to correct her. Every time I came home, I was greeted with such nasty looks and relentlessly insulted. "You being here means I can't invite friends over." "Why not? Just invite them. I don't want my friends thinking someone like you is my mom. It's embarrassing. Why do you have to come back?" Kayla seemed so displeased with my return that she quickly retreated to her room. I hoped things would go back to how they were. But truthfully, I might have been at a loss for a solution, simply overwhelmed. I thought of Kayla as my own child and raised her with love. Yet, with Daniel and Kayla treating me this way, my efforts seemed unrewarded. Without any concern for my troubles, Daniel and Kayla did as they pleased. Indeed, I had said I loved Daniel and would treat Kayla as my own even when marriage was proposed. That feeling was genuine. Maybe that's why Daniel took it for granted that I was smitten with him. He seemed to think he could say anything to me without consequence. Kayla, despite disliking me, seemed to think I would endlessly spend money for her benefit. This attitude from Daniel and Kayla had been a constant source of distress for me. While troubled, I continued to work, and on a day, 5 years later, I suddenly found my answer. That day, there was a significant meeting in America, and I was busy preparing. The main task was preparing the documents, as my boss was supposed to attend the meeting. However, my boss fell ill suddenly, and there were few who could step in. Given I was nearby, understood the situation, and knew the content of the documents, the task fell to me. I rushed to the meeting place and managed to handle the situation smoothly. After completing the handover and reporting, it was time to return directly to my assignment abroad. The company allowed me some consolidated leave, and I decided to return home after a long while. Then, just as I got home, I remembered. I hadn't informed Daniel of my return. It was sudden, and I had been in a rush, so it completely slipped my mind. But then, even if I had informed him, I'd likely have been met with abuse and treated as a nuisance. Thinking the outcome would be the same, I entered my home. As soon as I opened the front door, I heard the sound of laughter. What was that? Is someone visiting? It felt strange, as I hadn't heard such bright laughter from Daniel and Kayla in recent times. I heard a woman's voice from the living room. It was clearly an adult woman's voice, different from Kayla's. I stood frozen, holding my breath. The voice wasn't loud, and I couldn't make out what was being said. Careful not to be discovered, I quietly peeked into the living room. Inside, I saw Daniel, Kayla, and an unfamiliar woman. Huh? Who is that? I was consumed with curiosity about who this unknown woman could be. And Kayla's words soon cleared my doubt. Mom! Kayla called the woman Mom repeatedly. And the woman accepted those words with a smile. Kayla's attitude towards her was entirely different from how she treated me, genuinely affectionate. The resemblance between the two suggested a possibility to me. Could it be? My fleeting hope was quickly shattered, revealing an unwelcoming reality. After all, you caught yourself a top-notch ATM. Exactly! The pay is good, at least. Thanks to that, I can get by with just an easy part-time job. Plus, with her being abroad most of the time, it's perfect. That's right. As long as the money keeps coming, that's all that matters. Laughing together, Daniel and the woman shared this exchange. Kayla's slightly sullen voice then chimed in. But I want to be with my real mom, not a fake one. Unfortunately, my suspicions seemed confirmed. The sight of a seemingly happy family in the living room. But it wasn't me there. It was another woman, a stranger to me. The shock was so overwhelming that I found myself unable to think or move for a while. Then, I heard Daniel's voice cut through the silence. Until Kayla graduates college. Until then, we're strangers, but we'll have to endure, right? Well, college does cost a lot of money. This woman was likely Daniel's ex-wife, Kayla's biological mother, Brittany. That's what I thought. However, this is merely speculation, and without any recording, it can hardly be considered evidence. I quietly left the house. I never imagined that such a future awaited me after the meeting had ended. I had been used by those three all along. As I hurried back to the hotel, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had loved Daniel. And Kayla too. But if they say I'm not her biological mother, that's the end of it. Still, I believe I gave her all the love I could. However, Daniel and Kayla were different. Behind my back, both of them mocked me. The days I spent worrying suddenly seemed utterly foolish. What was my life even about? I thought I had been doing everything for the benefit of Daniel and Kayla, including this overseas assignment. Of course, I wanted to go, but not at the expense of neglecting my family. But perhaps that suited those three just fine. Anger started to bubble up within me. What did they take me for? What Daniel and Kayla needed wasn't me but the money I was earning. At that moment, I vowed to get revenge on that family. Then, I remembered the information about Brittany that Daniel once shared with me. Of course, there's no guarantee Daniel was telling the truth. But it didn't seem like a complete lie either. From the little I saw, Brittany's fashion and belongings were all cheap and flashy, not befitting her age. At least, it seemed true that she was reckless with money. And if she truly was the ex-wife, then I needed evidence. As it stood, it was just speculation based on their conversation. I needed solid proof. But that would explain Daniel and Kayla's behavior towards me. Tears of confusion started to flow. To get to the bottom of this, I hired a detective to investigate Daniel's conduct. A few weeks later, while I was still in my assignment country, I was informed that the investigation had concluded. By then, I had calmed down, and reading the report didn't upset me as much as I thought it might. Apparently, it was true that Brittany was extravagant with money and even had debts. Maybe the divorce was a sham, meant to prevent her debts from affecting Daniel. It seemed that Daniel and Brittany had continued their relationship even after the divorce. Yes, even after he remarried me. The fact that they are biological parent and child means some contact is natural. As for when they crossed the line, it's a thing of the past. The detective informed me in a bitter tone. Either way, it appeared that Daniel and Brittany's relationship had lasted a long time. Brittany loved gambling and alcohol and would spend all her money on them. Daniel married her because she got pregnant and looked after the child because it was his responsibility, nothing more. But is it really good enough just to take care of Kayla? No, it's not. Either way, it wasn't something I should be considering. The fact that Daniel couldn't cut ties with Brittany was Daniel's problem. The investigation also revealed more facts. Although I had been sending Daniel money for living expenses, he had been giving an allowance out of it to Brittany. She used that money to gamble and go drinking. They must have been enjoying their time together without my knowledge. And they were raising Kayla to suit their convenience. Unaware, I had been working from dawn till dusk in a foreign land, believing that someday they would understand me. I felt sick at my own naivety. And so I began my revenge. First, I stopped the remittance of living expenses to Daniel. The next day, he called. Even considering the time difference, it was quick, which made me smirk a bit. "Melissa, what's the meaning of this? You haven't deposited the living expenses. There are payments to be made. Hurry up and send the money." With that, Daniel tried to hang up. I informed him that I had no intention of sending any more money. Then Daniel raised his voice so loud it almost cracked the speaker. "Just send the money already. I don't have time for this." Too busy hanging out with Brittany? What? Daniel's tone clearly dropped. After a few seconds of flustered silence, he began to stammer out a defense. "What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? There's no way that's happening." Clearly, Daniel wanted to keep me, his ATM, attached until Kayla graduated from college. He seemed desperately trying to dodge the issue. I didn't let that go. "You think I don't know anything? What are you saying you know?" Though he tried to sound calm, Daniel's voice was shaking. "I've been lied to for over a decade." The decade part was a guess, but Daniel didn't deny it. That must be the case. Realizing I had caught on to everything, Daniel attempted to sidestep the topic about Brittany. "Look, just send the money, all right? Kayla has her tutoring fees. You really want her to miss out on school? If she can't go to college, how are you planning to take responsibility?" He thought mentioning Kayla would make me comply easily. Whether Kayla goes to college or not, it's none of my business anymore. My voice was colder than I expected. "What's gotten into you?" Daniel sensed that evasion was futile. His tone dropped, losing his previous assertiveness. "I've said it before, I'm not interested in taking care of your lives. Go back to Brittany and work it out with her. Kayla wants to be with her real mom, right?" As I said this, arguing voices could be heard over the phone. Then Kayla came on the line, apparently having been arguing with Daniel. "We won't be able to afford tutoring. What are you going to do about it? Ask your real mom. I'm just the fake one, after all." Kayla started yelling again. Daniel came back on the phone, attempting to calm things down. "Let's talk this over. You'll understand if you listen." I agreed to this proposal. And on my next return home, I was to have a discussion with Daniel. Upon arriving, Daniel was waiting, seemingly prepared to talk. "Please, just hear me out. There's nothing suspicious going on. I thought it was best for Kayla to sometimes meet her biological mother. That's all there was to it. Nothing more. Really." "Oh, is that so?" At this point, the details hardly mattered. But Daniel seemed displeased by my indifferent attitude. "On what basis are you accusing me of cheating? Enough is enough." I presented him with a copy of the report I had received earlier. Daniel became suspicious. As he flipped through the pages, his face turned pale, and his hands began to tremble. "What is this?" There were photos of Daniel entering lodging facilities with Brittany during the day and bringing her into our home when I was away. "That's you, isn't it? I'm the one who wants you to stop making a fool of me. How far do you intend to take this?" Daniel clutched the report, speechless. After a moment of heightened emotions, I sighed. "Well, I'm a stranger now. Whatever you do is none of my business. I have no obligation to support you. Get back with Brittany and figure it out as a real family. Then Daniel collapsed to his knees. We will obviously get a divorce. The rest will be handled through lawyers. I left him with those words and exited the house. After long struggling with my relationship with Daniel and Kayla, I felt lighter knowing that was behind me. I could now focus solely on myself. I left everything to my lawyer and returned to my assignment abroad. I had instructed the lawyer to demand compensation from Daniel, in addition to the divorce. Please, let's start over. Daniel's frantic plea came through, evidently informed by the lawyer. I don't need you. I'm not lacking anything without you. Don't say that. Let's go back to being a happy family like we used to be. Daniel's desperate appeals did not sway me. Don't call me again. With that, I hung up on Daniel. Later, my lawyer informed me that the divorce had been finalized successfully. The lawyer informed me about the situation of the three afterwards. The house we lived in was originally bought by me before the marriage. As it was a premarital asset, it was naturally in my name. Upon the divorce, I decided to put the house up for sale. As a result, Daniel and Kayla lost their place and had to move to a cheap apartment where Brittany lived. While it's good they returned to their original family, Brittany's extravagant spending hadn't changed, leading to constant fights with Daniel. And of course, the two of them were short on money. The lawyer visited Daniel's part-time job and arranged for a portion of his salary to be deducted and sent to me. Thus, money started to be deposited into my bank account every month. These two had lived as they pleased on my money until now. Given this situation, their separation seemed only a matter of time. Finally, the lawyer handed me a letter. It appeared to be from Kayla upon inspection. I'm sorry for all the mean things I said. My real mom and dad don't have money, so it looks like I can't go to college. Please help me. The message was brief, but unmistakably in Kayla's handwriting. However, there was no sign of remorse. She still saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM. It seemed. In front of the lawyer, I wrote my response to Kayla. If you want to go to college, try to get a scholarship and make an effort on your own first. Relying on someone else for an easy life is shameful. I hope this becomes an opportunity for you to change. I left the letter with the lawyer and returned to my hotel. But then, something unexpected happened. Somehow, Daniel had found out where I was staying and was waiting for me in the lobby entrance. How did he know I was here? A creeping sense of fear spread through me. What are you doing here? Looking at him, Daniel was in disheveled clothes, seemingly having come here without much thought. Help me. Daniel, who had only experienced easy part-time jobs, seemed unable to bear the current situation. The divorce is final. Just leave. When I said that firmly, Daniel collapsed to his knees again. The hotel security was watching us. Finally seeming to give up, Daniel left in a dejected manner. I was truly shocked to see Daniel in the lobby. The next day, I changed my accommodations. After everything was settled, I rented a room in a completely different place. And today, I am writing this as I have successfully moved into my new home. I don't need you. My husband said so casually. The daughter, laughing. We don't need a fake mom around, do we? Disappear already. I feel the blood draining from my face. It seems I was the only one who thought we were a precious family. After all I've done for them, using my part-time job money to pay for the mortgage and tuition. That's enough. It's time to reveal everything to these people who understand nothing. My name is Susan. My husband, William, and I are both on our second marriage, having been together for 15 years. We have a daughter, Nancy, who is William's child from his first marriage. I divorced my first husband because we couldn't have children. We went to the hospital, but they couldn't find a clear reason. Despite our love, our inability to have children led us to bicker. Eventually, even our parents got involved, and it ended badly without any happy memories. I was done with marriage, but fate intervened at a singles mixer I was dragged to by my parents. That's where I met my current husband. He was friendly, easy to talk to, and had a wonderful smile. William said, "Actually, I've been divorced." "So have I. And I'm raising a child on my own. That must be tough." "She's lovely. But I guess a girl needs a mom, right? But it's hard to find a kind woman who'd raise a stepchild." "What? Oops. Did you hear that?" I thought it was destiny. I had found the perfect person for someone like me who couldn't have children. William's divorce was due to his ex-wife's infidelity. The stepchild was 3 years old at the time. Must have been at an adorable age. To cheat with such a small child at home, what a terrible wife. William lived in a newly built house. It was just built, and there was still a mortgage. I can't pay it off alone, so I was thinking of letting it go. That's too bad. I've gotten rid of everything that belonged to my ex-wife, and I wanted to live here with you, but... Oh. Oops. Did you hear that? Could this be considered a proposal? Please don't worry. If it's all right, I can help pay the mortgage. Really? Thank you. I'll definitely pay you back. What are you saying? There's no need to pay me back. I'm going to be living here too. What? Oops. Did you hear that? Things were going well with William, but I had to disclose something important beforehand. But William accepted it smoothly, without any hesitation. You might be infertile? That's totally fine. One child is enough for us. Let's cherish her together. I was relieved. No more pressure to marry again. We got married quickly. Since it was the second marriage for both of us, we simply greeted our relatives and didn't have a ceremony. But I was happy. A kind husband, a lovely daughter, a new home. Having obtained what I once gave up on, I vowed to live for my family. To do anything for their happiness. Time passed, and now I am 48 years old. Good morning. Did you sleep well? As I greet her, my stepdaughter, Nancy, stares at me without returning the morning greetings and says, "Hey, you went into my room, didn't you? I just opened the window to air it out. Stop making excuses." Okay, sorry. Nancy has grown up so fast and is now in 12th grade. I don't know if it's because she's been spoiled too much or it's just her personality, but she's very strong-willed and extremely harsh towards me. What time will you be back today? It's none of your business. That's not true. I need to know for dinner. Don't care. Well, let me know when you figure it out. Don't order me around. She leaves for school without saying goodbye. I don't know what irritates her, but this is always her attitude. Maybe this prolonged rebellious phase is just a part of our step-parent relationship, making me feel down. I might be overthinking, but the invisible wall between us gets me down. I worry if I'm not being accepted as a mom. No. I've worked hard for Nancy's sake. I've taken care of her, stayed up nights when she was sick, and didn't hesitate to scold her when she was wrong. She must have felt my feelings closest to her. She'll understand when she's an adult. We're family for life, so there's no need to worry. What bothers me is William's silence. Given his position, he could mediate, but he acts as if it's none of his business. He's absorbed in his mobile phone again this morning. Please stop. But no matter how many times I say it, that mobile phone never leaves his side. He takes it to the bath and doesn't let go of it even when sleeping. He says he gets anxious without it. It's not like he's a teenager. It's a clear case of dependency. Peeking over his shoulder, William lets out a surprised yell.
Whoa! What's that for?
Just wondering what you're so engrossed in. Don't look at someone else's mobile phone. Got something to hide? It's privacy. It's embarrassing. He's looking at something embarrassing in the morning? But I decide not to pry. Common wisdom says there's nothing to be gained from spouses checking each other's mobile phones. Seeing William looking a bit angry, I cheerfully start a conversation. Hey William, this is the last month. For what? For Nancy's tuition payments. Our girl is graduating soon. Time flies, doesn't it? I meant it from the bottom of my heart. These 3 years have flown by, haven't they? Nancy's private high school is popular for its liberal atmosphere and stylish uniforms, but it's expensive. William was opposed when he saw the tuition, but Nancy said, I really want to go there. Wanting to fulfill Nancy's wish, I convinced a reluctant William and decided to take on multiple part-time jobs. The uniform, tuition fees, an overseas school trip, so-called voluntary donations, daily lunch money, allowance. And on top of that, this house's mortgage. Honestly, it was tough. Most of my part-time job earnings went to payments. But the joy of sending Nancy off every morning was irreplaceable. It's going to be lonely. William truly meant it. Are you going to miss it? Nancy isn't leaving home, so life won't change much, right? Maybe I'll just miss seeing Nancy in her uniform. That might be true. Come to think of it, my mom said she's waiting with lots of presents, so she told me to come visit after the graduation ceremony. It's been a while since my mom last saw Nancy, and she's really looking forward to it. Hey William, I need to talk to you. After Nancy graduates. Can't right now, I'm in the middle of something. William is engrossed in his mobile phone again. Okay, got it. There's only a week left until the graduation ceremony. There will be another chance to talk. A few days later. As I passed by Nancy's room, I heard voices inside. She seemed to be on the phone. Seriously, it's the worst. She appeared to be bad-mouthing someone. Not that I was particularly interested, but I stopped and listened. Pretending to be a mom when she doesn't understand anything, it's so annoying. My heart skipped a beat in shock. Was she talking about me? If so, who was she talking to? My real mom is you. I don't care about that old lady. Even Dad treats her like a maid, not bothering to have his own kids with her. No. When we got married, we decided together to cherish just Nancy. Unable to hold back, I opened the door to Nancy's room. Startled, Nancy seemed to have quickly ended the call. Hey, I've told you not to just come into my room, haven't I? Who are you talking to? Seeing my serious expression, Nancy laughed. Eavesdropping? That's the worst. I couldn't help but hear. Fine, I'll tell you. The person on the phone is my next mom. My vision darkens. Who is it? Since when? You're joking, right? My face goes pale, and I tremble. Are you saying he's cheating? That's not like him. Impossible. Nancy says disdainfully. Looks like you don't know, so I'll tell you. The reason for Dad's divorce from his first marriage was because of him. That can't be. Of course, he cheated. He's even paying alimony from the divorce trial. Nancy smoothly talks about things I had no idea about. Well, it's better for me to stay with Dad because I won't have to worry about money.
There must be some mistake.
Are we done here? I was in the middle of a call. Can you leave? Fake mom. I was driven out of the room. Why is Nancy talking on the phone with this so-called next mom so comfortably? What am I then? Feeling dizzy, I make my way to William in the living room. Hey, William. I heard from Nancy. Are you cheating, William?
Hey, what's this all of a sudden?
Am I the only one being left out? William looks at me puzzled.
Did Nancy play a prank on you?
I don't know what's true and what's a lie. I just had to ask. So, the reason for the divorce 15 years ago was due to your affair? What's with the sudden questioning? It wasn't your wife who cheated, but you, William? That's ancient history, isn't it? William answers without any remorse, with a distasteful smirk. So it's true. What are you going to do about it? I want to know the truth. I regret what I did and have reflected on it. What do you mean? William begins to explain with a defiant attitude. His affair caused his ex-wife to become mentally fragile, and he ended up with custody. He had never taken care of a child before, so he went to a singles mixer, conveniently looking for someone to replace mom. To my shock, William says, "It's all in the past now. We're happy now, aren't we?" He smiles with the same expression as when we first met. That's terrible. I've been acting as this family's mom for 15 years, juggling part-time jobs on top of household chores to make payments. And to be told I'm real or fake. Are we done here?
Excuse me?
You chose to do all that, didn't you? Stop complaining. Like Nancy said, you're just a fake after all. It's all just pretend play. His dismissive response left me stunned. Pretend play? Did he really just say that?
How could you say that?
But it's true. I need to cool off. Yeah, you do that. I just lay down on the sofa. I wanted to sleep in the bedroom to rest properly, but I couldn't move. The headache is unbearable. As if my head is splitting open. William offers no comfort, not even extending a hand in concern. We need to have a serious talk, both of us. Cheating, the next mom, my head is about to explode with all this. Morning comes without my thoughts settling. I drift in and out of sleep, haunted by restless dreams, barely resting at all. It felt like a noisy, frantic nightmare. Ah, that was refreshing, feels good.
Right, Dad?
William and Nancy appeared with towels wrapped around their heads. He looked like he was cleaning or boxing things so he could move out because he was sweating profusely. Puzzled, I glance towards the entrance and see a junk collection truck driving away. My dresser and chest of drawers are on the back.
Hey! That's my... Why?
I rush to ask them what they've done.
What the hell did you do? There was a cancellation, so they could come right away.
That's not what I'm asking. We threw them out.
Threw them out? My things?
If I'm going to live with a new wife, I need to get rid of the previous wife stuff, right?
Huh.
Don't need them anymore. William says this nonchalantly. I'm trembling. Nancy laughs. We don't need a fake mom around, do we? Disappear already. I feel the blood draining from my face. Fake. Believing that being a mom isn't just about giving birth, but that I, who raised her, am truly her mom. All this time I held on to that belief. Yet, looking around the house, from the bedroom to the laundry room and closet, all of my things have been thrown away. Only the suit I was to wear for Nancy's graduation ceremony tomorrow was spared, left in the living room. I held the suit carefully and said, I understand. I'll disappear.
You're not planning on coming to the graduation ceremony tomorrow, are you? It's enough if Dad is there as the guardian. I know that. Oh good, I'd hate for my mom to be a fake.
Nancy says this with a laugh. Where did I go wrong in raising her? The sadness nearly brings tears to my eyes. I can't forgive being betrayed from the start. All my time and money gone. Nancy calls me a fake mom. Perhaps it was a self-centered effort on my part. Maybe this was destined to happen, given the kind of person Nancy is. Well, tomorrow, they'll be the ones with nothing to gain. The next day. I regret not being able to see Nancy in her moment of glory. Despite the beautifully clear weather contrasting my mood. My own mom left the house dressed up. Celebrating a day that has finally come, yet I can't share in the celebration with them. Soon, my mobile phone starts buzzing like crazy. It's Nancy. Why would she call in the middle of her graduation ceremony? I switch it to silent mode. I slip into the suit that narrowly escaped yesterday's purge. It's time to reveal everything. Upon arriving at the graduation ceremony, I find one student left alone in the gym. It was Nancy.
You finally showed up.
Nancy was trembling. Over 300 missed calls told the story of her anger.
It's because of you, isn't it?
What are you talking about?
I was told not to show up at the graduation ceremony. You must have been behind this, right?
Why would I do that?
That's what I'm asking you.
Then, a young woman appeared. Nancy says to the woman,
Betty, do something about her.
It seemed to be Nancy's homeroom teacher was this Betty. Betty, with a displeased look, said,
Regardless of being the former mom, sabotaging a graduation is unforgivable.
She looked at me provocatively. So it's you.
Nice to meet you. I'm the new mom.
I never expected it to be Nancy's homeroom teacher. It made sense they got along well.
You seem to be mistaken, but I have no power to sabotage a graduation.
I'm just a guardian now.
Huh? What?
Then, the school director, dressed up, appeared.
Oh, everyone's here together. School director. Why am I the only one who can't graduate?
Nancy immediately snapped at her. The school director apologized with a troubled smile.
I'm sorry, there was something I absolutely had to confirm with you, Nancy, so I instructed it. Me? With the school director? You are special, Nancy. Is that so? Yes, I wanted to keep you here. Once we give you your diploma, you'll leave, right? I'd be troubled if we never meet again. Because I'm excellent?
Nancy seems pleased by the misunderstanding. Now looks unsettled in front of the school director. Unable to maintain her arrogant demeanor. Any attempt to mend her image now is too late. The school director said to Betty,
Betty, you've had several parent-teacher conferences with Nancy's father, haven't you? What? You've submitted numerous request forms for conferences.
What? The two of them are visibly tense, exchanging glances.
That was because Betty and her dad said they wanted to talk to me. No, it was necessary for career guidance.
The school director, with a tone of disbelief. Her career path was decided over 6 months ago. What guidance were you providing?
Well,
I sighed. To think Nancy was aiding and abetting William's affair.
I just did what Betty asked. I don't know anything. Wait. You're the one who suggested using the career guidance office because it was safe and nobody would find out, right? I'm happy to have a younger mom.
She was just saying that the other day, and now this parent-child squabble. Then, William approached. He seemed to have been hiding in a corner of the parents' area.
Now, let's calm down. Leave this to me, I'll handle it.
It's hard to imagine what William can do, considering how eager he seems to step in. School director. My remarriage to Betty has nothing to do with Nancy's graduation. We've paid our tuition in full. Please give Nancy her diploma already. The school director listens silently to William's plea.
School director? Are you listening?
William, don't you recognize me? I suppose it's understandable since you haven't seen me since Nancy was little. What? It's a shame, really. I had a graduation gift prepared and was looking forward to it. Besides, it wasn't William who managed the household finances to pay for the tuition, was it?
Wait, mother-in-law.
Yes. The school director is my mom.
You're kidding. You kept this a secret?
I wanted to ensure all students were treated equally, so I planned to explain everything after graduation. Everyone is visibly shocked. Nancy seems unable to believe that the school director, who she's been seeing all this time, was her grandmother.
Grandma? Really?
Yes.
Then why? Why would you interfere with your granddaughter's graduation? Oh, you haven't come to me since you were little, and now you want to be my granddaughter when it suits you? But we're not related by blood.
Indeed.
But then, who desperately took care of raising Nancy? That was her own doing, wasn't it? I didn't ask for it.
Nancy turns her anger towards me.
Besides, I said it's enough if Dad is the guardian. Why are you even here?
Seems like she's forgotten about the insistent calls that summoned me here. That's rather convenient forgetfulness. I'm not a guardian.
What?
I'm succeeding my mom and will become the school director from the next academic year. We agreed to announce it after your successful graduation.
What? What?
Nancy, William, and Betty all wear faces of astonishment.
Understand? I have a responsibility in this matter. Hey! I wasn't informed about this.
I tried to talk to you, but you didn't listen, William. Oh. Normally, I wouldn't interfere with a guardian's affair, but when school staff are involved, staying silent would be wrong, wouldn't it? I turned to a pale-faced Betty. For engaging in behaviors unbefitting a teacher, such as making marriage promises with a married guardian, obsessively sending messages and calling, engaging in inappropriate physical relationships, and giving special treatment to a student, you are dismissed from your position effective today.
You knew all about it? Yes. That can't be. Make sure to keep up with the mortgage payments that I've been making.
No. I can't do that.
And expect a claim for compensation from the divorce proceedings. If I had known you were the future school director's wife, I wouldn't have promised to marry.
It's too late for such excuses. My discarded belongings won't come back, nor will it erase the evidence of the affair.
You'll be fine. You'll find a new job soon. Let's get through this together,
William said as he hugged the pale-faced homeroom teacher's shoulders. She brushed it off with her hand in annoyance.
Don't touch me. What are you going to do about this?
After saying that, I held my head.
I shouldn't have taken the affair lightly. My life is ruined because of you and your daughter.
I wonder what the parties are saying. I am convinced that this teacher is unnecessary as the next school director. She's a horrible woman who messes with a student's dad, so we need to notify the nearby schools.
So, what about my graduation?
Nancy said, after a moment of thought.
Nancy, you've played a part in this, but the main culprits have been dealt with. You'll graduate conditionally. What? What does that mean? This is a school, after all. Let's assign some homework. Write a reflection paper, 20 pages each. What? Are you serious?
Nancy, who dislikes language arts class, makes a face as if she's hit rock bottom. Given Nancy's personality, reflection and apology won't come easily.
Make sure you do your best not to repeat the year. If that happens, don't worry, I'll be there to guide you as the school director. What? Don't get too full of yourself. Enough! First, we need to teach you how to speak properly. What? Your response?
Yes. William, who had been silently observing the situation, suddenly changed his demeanor.
I'm sorry for not considering Susan's feelings. But keeping the next school director a secret wasn't right. If I knew how impressive that was, I would have been nicer.
I responded with a look of disdain.
Make sure you pay the compensation from the divorce proceedings soon.
What?
Though it was brief, I enjoyed our little pretend play.
What? Now, parents, please leave. My voice echoed in the silent gymnasium. I wish the new family of 3 the best in their continued pretend play. 3 days later, I received their reflection papers. First was William's. It seemed like he picked up some generic text from the internet, full of copy and paste, shallow and repetitive apologies. Even an unaware AI could write better. No real reflection was evident. Should I accept it just because he submitted it for Nancy's sake? No, I want my time back for having read it. Rejected. Then, Nancy's. It was full of how pitiable she was and her grievances against me. With no sign of reflection. She complained about the difficulties with laundry and meals, resentful of the life she lost. I had cared for the family from dawn till dusk, enabling their comfortable lives. Indeed, they're reaping what they sowed. There was no reflection paper submitted by Betty. It seems she woke up to reality, decided against marrying into such a situation, and fled. With their new mom gone and both of them lacking basic household skills, I wonder how they'll manage to live. But that's not my concern. It's a good opportunity for them to learn self-sufficiency. However, if they continue to see me as the villain, they'll never make progress. I'm no longer a mom, and even if Nancy doesn't think so, she is a child I raised with love for 15 years. I couldn't truly deny her graduation, but before she steps into society, it's time to straighten out her twisted character. After school every day, she'll come to the school director's office for supplementary lessons on general knowledge. She'll also help with clerical work. Her reflection paper, in its current state, can't be accepted, so she'll take her time to correct it. Maybe after a year of hard work, she'll turn out to be a decent person. That depends on Nancy. I'm ready to support her for years if necessary. I never had my own children, but I've had the role of overseeing and graduating many students. This responsibility will continue for years to come. There are all kinds of students and guardians, each with their own family situations. Not all students come from privileged backgrounds. I'm prepared to grow alongside them, doing my best. Late at night on a snowy road, my young granddaughter Harper came to our house, carrying an unfamiliar baby on her small back. What on earth was going on? Lost for words. Dad said to go borrow hospital money, Harper told me in a faint voice. In response,
"That's impossible,"
my husband Thomas exclaimed. Ignoring my surprise at his harsh words, Thomas took astonishing action. My name is Madison. Recently, the stairs have become a real challenge for me, a 63-year-old. Thomas, 65, just retired from work. We talk about wanting to do various things now that it's just the two of us. For starters, to fend off declining strength, I'm thinking of walking every day. Fortunately, we're in a bit of the countryside here, with few cars and people, and the air is fresh. It's the perfect place for a walk. I thought retirement life might be lonely, but it's not really. That's because my daughter Lily's family lives nearby. Lily is 35 and a mom to one child. My granddaughter Harper, just turned into a first grader at 6 years old, is absolutely adorable. Lily's husband Daniel is a bit gruff and seems to avoid our place. But, well, if the family relationship is good, I try not to mind. Lily and her husband have Lily as the breadwinner working hard, with Daniel being a house husband. I'm proud of my daughter, but I worry it might be too much for her. If it were Lily as the housewife, I'd want to help in any way I can, but with Daniel, it's not so easy. Too much meddling might be seen as annoying. And yet, doing nothing and just leaving them be makes me feel uneasy about the right distance. Then, one day, something unsettling happened. Returning from shopping, I found Harper in front of the house unexpectedly. It's not too far for a child to walk from Lily's home to ours, but it's a fair distance. Moreover, Harper was carrying her school backpack. Wearing a backpack too big for her small first-grade self, Harper had come over after school. And it was on a hot day just before the summer break. "Well, Harper, what's wrong?" "Dad said I couldn't go into the house, so I came here." "What?" Confused about what was going on, but seeing Harper's pale face, I quickly let her inside to cool down. Thomas had gone out when I went shopping, so no one was home. I wonder how long she had been here. Harper drank the cold juice I offered her in one go. "Mom is at work, but why did Dad say you couldn't go inside?" "I don't know, but he said it's because he's busy." "Huh? Too busy to let her into her own house?" That's absurd. And to lock her out in such scorching heat. Anger welled up inside me. "Once you're feeling better, let's go back together with Grandma. I'll talk to Dad." I've been holding back because he's my daughter's husband, but this is simply unacceptable. This is something that can't be kept silent. Harper nodded, and as we headed home, the front door suddenly opened before we could ring the doorbell.
"Bye then,"
said a strange woman, waving as she left. Who was that? Surprised by the sudden event, Harper and I watched the woman walk away. Rushing into the entrance, I found Daniel with a shocked expression. "Daniel, you locked Harper out, and then what? You had a woman over while Lily was away?" Furious at me, Daniel frowned.
"What?"
And he grumpily responded.
"Don't just come here and start accusing me of nonsense. That was just a sales lady. I told her we didn't need a water purifier, but she was persistent, so I was just getting rid of her."
"A sales lady?"
"Yes,"
said Daniel, turning his back. "Then why lock Harper out because you were busy?"
"Oh, I was in the middle of something I couldn't step away from. Lily asked me to fix a shelf, but it was bad timing, and I was tied up." "Hey, Harper,"
said Daniel, calling Harper over. Harper trembled.
"Kid, I told you to wait, didn't I? Why didn't you wait instead of going over there?"
"I did wait, but it was too hot, and you never let me in."
"If I said wait, you should wait. Don't make things difficult. Hey!"
I couldn't stay silent, seeing Harper scared by the harsh words. "But..."
"Don't start with me, Madison. I'm the one raising Harper. I'd appreciate it if you didn't interfere with how we raise our child."
He glared at me. Indeed, as a grandmother, I remembered not wanting outsiders to meddle in my parenting. Being told not to interfere by someone with parenting experience left me speechless. "Thank you, Grandma," said Harper, waving goodbye, which made me feel melancholy. My concerns about whether everything was truly okay proved correct. Similar incidents happened repeatedly afterward. I couldn't stay silent and contacted Lily, but
Daniel takes care of the house, allowing me to focus on my work. We couldn't live without my job, so I'm grateful to Daniel. I trust him with child rearing, so please don't interfere.
she scolded me in response. Taking a leap, I mentioned the woman leaving their house.
Why worry? It must have been a salesperson. They target the countryside thinking there are more elderly people around here. They're persistent even though we've said no multiple times.
She seemed unconcerned. Yet, a noticeable change occurred in Lily's home. As summer break began, Harper's visits to our house became more frequent. "Dad says to stay outside, or he'll skip meals for me."
What?
It seems that when Lily was away on business trips, Daniel would lock Harper out. It's not feasible to spend every day at a friend's house during summer break. Nor is it realistic to kill time in the park due to the excessive heat. No lunch and no dinner if she disobeys.
That's too cruel.
I couldn't help but exclaim in anger.
I can't stand it anymore. Grandma will talk to Dad and Mom for you.
I clenched my fist, ready to lecture them. "Please don't." Harper quickly intervened. "If you do that, Dad will get in a bad mood again. And Mom is busy with work. It'll just cause more trouble." Could this really be the words of a first grader? To worry so much about their parents' feelings at such an age. It's heartbreaking. I decided to have a serious talk with Lily. But when I tried calling, she was too busy to speak. What to do? As summer ended and autumn passed, the cold season arrived swiftly. I wonder how they're doing. Staring out at the falling snow from inside my house, I muttered to myself. Harper, now 7, had suddenly stopped coming by. Their absence was worrying in its own way. And there was no way to contact Lily at all. Even if they thought it a nuisance, perhaps I should visit their house. With that thought, I gazed aimlessly outside.
What?
Surprised by what I saw, I hurriedly dashed outside. "What's going on?" Thomas's puzzled voice went unheard as I forgot to even put on my coat and rushed out.
Harper?
There stood Harper, in front of the house. Despite the snow brightening the night, it was nearly midnight, about to change dates. No time for a school-aged child to roam. Yet there he stood, shivering in the cold, even with a coat. Could he have walked from their house in this snow? Even in the countryside, it's not like cars never pass by. The thought of slipping on the snowy road was terrifying.
What are you doing here at this hour? No, never mind that. Come inside quickly.
I reached for Harper's hand, but he shook their head.
Harper?
I need money.
Huh?
Please lend me some money.
What?
At that unexpected request, I was shocked. Then, from his back, the sound of a baby crying.
What?
Surprise after surprise left me nearly speechless. Hastily checking, I saw a baby, bundled up against the cold, being carried on Harper's back.
Wait, a baby? What? Why?
I hadn't heard anything about Lily being pregnant. If the baby was being carried, it meant they were at least 4 months old, having grown enough to support their head. But for those 4 months, and even before, there was no sign of Lily being pregnant or giving birth.
What's going on?
I yelled, forgetting we were outside in the middle of the night. What are you doing? Get inside now. Thomas had come out to see what was happening and scolded us, snapping me out of my panic. Quickly, I brought him and the baby inside. In the warm room, I gave him something warm to drink and made sure the baby wasn't cold. Initially, "I need to get back quickly, or Dad will," he said, but after drinking warm milk and feeling the warmth, finally showed a relieved expression.
What happened?
Tears quickly filled and spilled from his eyes.
Dad said we don't have any money, so he told me to borrow some hospital money from Grandma and Grandpa. What do you mean? Hospital money?
The baby seems to have a fever.
What?
Touching the baby's forehead, it was indeed slightly warm. But being a baby, their body temperature is higher, so it's hard to tell for sure. You know, this child is Dad's.
Then, Lily's?
No, not Mom's child.
What?
I was utterly confused by the situation. Confused, Harper spoke with a downcast expression. Mom has been coming home late because of important work lately. She's been on a business trip since yesterday, so I'm on my own.
I see.
Then today, this lady brought over the baby. She's an important client of Dad's, and he told me to take care of the baby because he's busy. He said it's his child, so take good care of it. This was supposed to be a secret. I'm sorry, I'll get scolded if it's found out I told you it's Dad's child. Exhausted from shouting, I let out a defeated sigh. What is going on? So, I told Dad the baby seemed in pain, and he and the lady said to take the baby to the hospital. They're too busy, and they don't have the money, so they told me to borrow it from you.
Were you kicked out after saying that?
Yeah.
Daniel is the worst.
I couldn't help but shout. Grandma ended up shouting for Harper.
Calm down.
Thomas scolded me. Then, Harper turned to Thomas, my husband, and Harper's grandfather. Harper finds the usually taciturn Thomas a bit intimidating. Well, he does seem grumpy all the time. But Harper, trying their best, hesitantly asked Thomas, "Grandpa, please, can you lend us the money for the baby's hospital bill?" Tears welling up in their eyes. Thomas, can't you make a kinder face, I thought, but then.
That's impossible.
He barked. Why speak in such a manner? Unable to hold back any longer, Harper burst into tears. Yet, the baby looks in pain, please. She bravely continued. At this point, it doesn't matter whose child the baby is. Just as I was about to say something to Thomas, thinking we couldn't abandon Harper and the baby.
Call a taxi.
Thomas spoke up before I could.
What? Don't dawdle, do it now. Yes.
I hurriedly called a taxi, and following Thomas's instructions, I took them to the pediatric emergency department.
I won't lend money, but you, a child, don't need to go to the hospital. An old hand at child rearing like your grandma will take you, so rest assured. And I'm going to prepare a bath now, Harper. You go warm up in the bath, got it?
Thomas declared with an authoritative tone. Both Harper and I could only nod in agreement. Upon arrival at the hospital, the baby was seen immediately. The doctor suggested the fever might be due to the cold. We were advised to keep the baby calm and received some medicine for the baby. Since the baby's identity was unknown, we couldn't use health insurance. The doctor was also surprised. We ended up paying a considerable amount. Normally, the cost for a baby's medical consultation and medication would be very low in this area. Is that moron Daniel saying he doesn't even have that? I'll make him pay later. My anger grew even more. By the time we got home, it was already past midnight, and Harper, who had been waiting up with Thomas, had fallen asleep. When I returned with the baby, Harper woke up in a panic. "How's the baby?" she asked. Worrying about others even in such a situation, what a kind child. I couldn't help but tear up. So, Thomas, instead of looking so grumpy, show a smile and reassure them. But, surprisingly, Harper hugged the serious-faced Thomas. Looking on in astonishment, I saw Harper smiling.
Grandpa, the baby's okay. That's good, right? You were worried. Fool, why would I worry about someone else's baby? But you were worried. You kept asking if I was cold or hungry, or if you should read me a storybook. You cared a lot. There's no such person like me.
Harper innocently reported Thomas's behavior. Oh, that was you, I said, laughing, which made Thomas look even grumpier, though his cheeks relaxed. The next day, Thomas acted before I could. He first called Lily.
What, Dad? I'm busy at work right now. Come home right now. You idiot.
He shouted and hung up the phone. Then he made another call. What is it, Thomas? Did Harper go to your place okay? How's the baby? Daniel answered, sounding groggy. To think he could sleep peacefully after sending 2 young children out into the heavy snow in the middle of the night.
Get over here right now, you idiot.
He shouted again before hanging up. Right before that, he yelled one more thing.
Bring the woman you're with right now too. Or be prepared for what's coming.
Such intensity. I could imagine Daniel turning pale on the other end of the phone. A few hours later, Lily returned from her business trip, wondering what had happened. Daniel arrived almost at the same time as Lily, along with another woman. The 3 of them sat in front of Thomas, who stood with his arms crossed. The woman with Daniel seemed familiar.
Ah, the sales lady from before.
Yes, she was the woman who had left the house when Harper was locked out during the summer. Ah, I think I understand what's going on now. Lily, looking uncomfortable, lifted her face. Dad, what's all this?
Shut your mouth.
Yes. Lily knew when Thomas was angry, he was really angry. And straightened up at his word. Why am I here? Daniel, still unfamiliar with how intimidating Thomas could be, asked reluctantly. So, Thomas crouched down. And gave a glare that made Daniel say, No, nothing. Daniel, you shouldn't underestimate Thomas's intensity.
Well, here's a thick envelope,
Thomas said, pulling out an envelope. Inside were 4-sized documents.
The results of an investigation into Daniel's background. What?
The shock was voiced by everyone but Thomas. Of course, I was surprised too. When did you arrange for something like this?
When Harper was locked out in the middle of summer, and you said you saw the sales lady. And you appear in it, huh? Hernandez? What?
At that, the woman let out a strange noise.
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? You're not a sales lady but Daniel's mistress, right? What?
Lily was the one surprised by Thomas's words. Did she really believe this woman was just a sales lady? Too naive. Daniel and the woman named Hernandez looked awkward.
Daniel's living the life, huh? Letting Lily work while he enjoys days of affairs at home. Kicking Harper out and doing who knows what. What are you talking about?
The moment Daniel tried to play dumb, Thomas hit the floor. The floor cracked and Daniel flinched.
Oops, my bad. Thought I saw a bug,
Thomas said, blowing on his fist. But seriously, Thomas, fix the floor later.
Sorry, didn't catch that. So, the woman beside you is your mistress, right? That is, right?
Thomas glared at Daniel with a menacing look.
Yes, she's my mistress.
Daniel turned away, sweating profusely.
Huh? You've been making me work while you cheat? Talking about protecting the home and child, and you've protected nothing.
Lily stood up in shock and anger.
Sit down for now.
Yes. But at Thomas's command, Lily sat down promptly.
Hernandez, you're married too, right? What?
The woman looked up in surprise, at the same time. Huh? Was Daniel's reaction.
You said you were single, didn't you? Was that a lie? I was planning to divorce. So, you're not divorced yet? Ridiculous. Don't you dare act all high and mighty when you have a wife and child yourself.
What a mess. A woman who knew she was dealing with a married man, and a man cheating despite having a family. Just a typical argument between scumbags.
Don't tell me the baby isn't mine but your husband's? That is. I knew it was weird. I made sure it couldn't happen.
The lowest of discussions was being had. The woman got angry at Daniel's anger.
Shut up. Whether I'm married or whose child it is, it's none of your business. It was just a relationship seeking thrills.
What did you say?
That's enough. We're breaking up. Lily, I'm returning your husband to you. He's no longer my problem. What?
Lily was confused by the sudden turn in the conversation. But then Thomas spoke solemnly.
As if it ends with no hard feelings, goodbye.
Indeed.
Lily, what about the compensation? Compensation? Oh, for the divorce? We have plenty of evidence. If you want to claim compensation from both of them, I'll support you. Yes. Of course I will.
Lily nodded energetically, finally understanding what she needed to do.
What do you mean?
Daniel, the only one not catching on, was told by Lily.
I'm divorcing you. We'll be claiming compensation from both of you, and I'll also demand child support from Daniel, so be prepared.
Huh?
Why? I'm breaking up with this woman. There's no need to divorce. The only option for me is to divorce someone who can't understand that.
No, wait a minute.
I can't start working now. I don't care. Just so you know, housework is a legitimate job, you fool.
It ended with Lily's sharp rebuke. So, Daniel and Hernandez hung their heads in shame. As things quieted down, Harper, who had been in another room, peeked out.
Is the talk over?
It's over. Come here to Mom, Harper. Lily, looking tired, reached out to Harper. Harper hurried over but didn't hug Mom, Lily. Instead, they bypassed her and hugged Thomas, who was standing to the side.
Grandpa, I'm hungry. Is that so? Well, then, let's have Grandpa make something. I want noodle. All right, I'll make some tasty one. Yay!
They cheerfully headed to the kitchen, leaving behind this mess. Lily stood, unsure what to do with her extended hand. On the floor.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Daniel muttered. What will I do if my husband finds out? While Hernandez, also dazed. I chuckled bitterly, hearing the baby cry, and went to tend to the infant, leaving the three behind. Afterward, with the help of a lawyer Thomas knew, Lily successfully divorced. Naturally, Lily retained custody of Harper, and a lump sum for compensation and child support was agreed upon. Daniel clung to her until the end, saying, "It's because you were busy with work that I felt lonely." But,
"You're the one who told me to work. Don't joke with me,"
Lily retorted. Despite claiming to have no money, Daniel's parents apologized and paid on his behalf. They said they would make him repay them over a lifetime, but it's doubtful such a distraught man could work properly. As expected, Daniel became a recluse, eventually kicked out by his family, and went missing, a typical end for him. As for Hernandez, her affair was discovered by her husband, leading to divorce. The baby was taken in by her husband, which is probably better for the child. To think both partners would cheat while on a business trip, with a baby in tow. Daniel and Hernandez? They were truly despicable. As for Lily, after a stern lecture from Thomas, she reflected deeply. "I'll face my child properly," she declared firmly, so the future should be okay. But being a single mother will be tough, so she decided to live with us. Supporting Harper's upbringing will become our responsibility until they're grown. While thinking about the challenges of child-rearing, I was actually looking forward to it. Life needs some excitement, I thought, looking at Thomas playing Othello with Harper, his face slack with enjoyment. Thomas is always gruff with Lily and me, but this incident revealed his tender side towards Harper. Even after years of marriage, there are still new sides to discover in one's partner, I thought, watching him with a smile.